Hello and welcome to the show. This is the Sales for the Nigerian Business Person podcast. I'd like to welcome you guys to what is going to be a new adventure in the podcast series. Because if you've been listening since we started off 3 years and over 710 episodes ago, you'll realize that I haven't done a ton of interviews. Well, actually, I've only done one interview in the over 700 episodes that we've got so far. But I also think that there are good lessons to be learned in talking to other business people because, after all, the sole thesis that I have behind starting this podcast is that one of the more important functions that we have in the business are the sales and the marketing functions of a business. And so it's going to be nice to see how people have applied those principles to their own businesses, even when people don't consciously do so. So you have people like me who take a very conscious approach when it comes to sales and marketing. But whether people do so consciously or not, you're going to find in the series of conversations that I'm going to be having with business owners in the future, you're going to see that the sales and marketing functions are not things that we can shy away from, and people have a way of paying attention to them, even if they don't do so on a conscious basis. Now, since I am not a tech head when it comes to these sorts of things, I haven't actually figured out how to do podcast interviews. In fact, the first interview that I did with Nene, the communication specialist with Nene, based in Canada, that was only possible because she's a real tech head, she's a real gearhead, and so she basically did all the production. She hooked up the recording, the software, making sure I had clean audio on this end, clean audio on her own end, mixing everything, editing, and all of that. So until I get the particulars wrapped up for those sorts of things, what's going to happen is that I'm going to call up different business people. We'll have a chat about the business, and then I'm going to relay my own end of the conversation over here, and then try and distill what the highlights of the conversation were and the learnings that people should take away from the conversation. So, of course, I'm kicking this off with someone that I went to school with, and her name is Alexia Horsfall. She is in the makeup and the beauty space. For those of you who are curious, the website is alexiahorsfall.com, all one word, and it's Alexia. That's an I and an A, not Alexa. And then for her, Horsfall, there is no E in the horse. So it is Alexia, then Horsfall, HORSFALL.com. And the Instagram handle is Alexia Horsfall Beauty. That's the Instagram handle. So for those of you who are curious, you can go and have a look. So she's been in the beauty space, the makeup and in the beauty space for well over 13 years. And she admitted that what has kept her going for this length of time has not been anything that she has lent conscious thought to so far. But for our classmates, those of us who left law school and who are thinking about what to do next, and even other people that have come in contact with post law school, people who decide to try a business, it's not often that you find that somebody starts a business in year one and then 13 years later, a decade later, two decades later, they're still in the same line of business. The typical thing has been, we've known people, boys and girls, and I'm sure you can relate from your own uni days, or even if you're still in university, that chap who starts something this semester, next semester it's something else, and then another semester they're on to something else. So staying in the business for a decade, 13 years, it's not something that you see all the time. And so, of course, I had lots of congratulations for her on that point. But as the conversation wore on, we started getting a sense of how there are some significant themes that tie in her approach to business growth and business development. So even though she got into the beauty business and the makeup business by chance, since it wasn't consciously planned, you will find that there are some unifying themes that run throughout. So, like I said, it wasn't something that was planned, but however, by the time she was having her undergraduate studies, she kind of got the realization that law might not be the final career for her. And so she was curious about what else was out there in the world, what else she could do. And so she started asking around for internships and ended up interning for Tara Fela Durotoye. So forgive me if I'm not pronouncing the name correctly. Tara, she is the brains behind, or should I say the CEO behind, I think it's House of Tara. Well, I should have confirmed that before I started recording anyway. So she also is a titan in the makeup space in Nigeria. And at the time, Tara gave Alexia a job offer to be an administrative intern. And so that is what she did pretty much for the rest of the time she was in law school, sorry, not law school, undergraduate studies. So from her year 2, year 3, every second semester holiday until she graduated from at the university, she was her job was to be an administrative intern with Tara Fela Durotoye. So at the time, she was not looking to be a makeup artist, and she was happy to be exposed to the other parts of the business, which were the much more entrepreneurial focused aspects of the business, business development, customer interactions, those sorts of things. And so she admits that that was her initial focus. But then at some point, eventually, Tara and her crew were short staffed, and so Tara asked her to pay attention to the much more artistic side of the business so that she could step in whenever they were short on hands. But this was expected to be a temporary thing. But however, from that experience of working with Tara and then, of course, moving on to law school, she noticed that she started getting lots of wedding makeup gigs. And so that continued doing law school, doing wedding makeup, and even until after law school, where she started working for the started working for an NGO as their head of admin. And to be honest, that was the point at which Alexia and I kind of lost touch, that period after law school. But she admits that even though she was the head of admin for this NGO, she was still booking wedding clients. And because of that, she started working from home. That was before working from home was a thing. Because, of course, in Nigeria anyway, your employer, you're an employee rather, and then you are entitled to a certain amount of annual leave. But the good thing about Nigeria is that we have a bit of a good boy culture or a good girl culture, where if you're on good terms with your employers, you can negotiate certain things. So she got the ability to work from home instead of taking an annual leave, and so that is what allowed her to focus on her wedding clients. Because the way things work in Nigeria, the wedding industry, for those of you who've been listening to the podcast from day one, you remember that I started off my business journey when I came back to Nigeria after leaving Scotland. Started off as a wedding photographer. So typically it would be maybe like the traditional wedding would be on a Thursday, and maybe the registry wedding would have been the Monday before, and then you have the big white wedding, as we call it over here, on a Saturday. So if you were working someplace full time, it would be difficult to take time off on a Monday, only to take time off again on a Wednesday, because you have clients that you are servicing on the side. So actually, it's good, the approach that she took, and it's something that I've always championed. Being real upfront with your employers and folks that you have to work with. You need to level up. You need to let them know how far, so that there are no nasty surprises and everything can be amicable when it comes to growing your business. And it's also the same thing that I did when I started selling financial products. It's something that I owned up to the people. Now, look, I have my sales coaching and my business consulting thing that I'm going to do. I'm definitely not going to stop that if I am going to sell products for you guys. And then my conversations with the owner of the agency and also with the person that was assigned to be my line manager now became about how we could come up with a constructive plan for merging those two activities. So selling financial products over here while still maintaining this other thing on the side. So for those of you who based in Nigeria, you still haven't decided. You have a couple of ideas that you want to float. There are ways that these conversations can be handled openly so that there's no acrimony, no undue pressure. But of course, it has to be, these conversations need to be had with a certain amount of maturity and personal wisdom, if I can put it that way. Because experience has shown, not just in the Western countries, but also over here, that it's possible for you to run into spiteful colleagues or employees who might decide to make your life a living hell, or to say that you're not pulling your weight, or those sorts of things. But anyway, that's a podcast episode for another day. So she had to come up with this sort of arrangement because eventually she looked at the figures, like some entrepreneurs have done before her, and realized that the money coming in from the makeup, from her makeup activities, was much more than the salary. So eventually, she was able to open a store in 2012, and so between law school and her opening up the store, we reestablished contact again briefly, because I remember my brother and I, when we were about to come up with our own wedding website, we wanted to come up with some marketing collateral, just to see how we can create promo material for businesses. That's apart from the wedding work that we were doing. So we used Alexia as a test subject. Let me put it that way. Yeah, I was going to say guinea pig, but that doesn't sound right. So we followed Alexia in her new store. Filmed some interactions with her and her clients. We did some beauty shoots, stuff like that, and yeah, and then after that we lost touch again. Anyway, so she opened her store in 2012, and then eventually she moved into beauty retail in 2019. And for those of you men listening to the podcast who don't realize what the difference is, let me explain the difference, because I'm sure the women already know the difference. When you have a makeup store or a beauty store, you have a location, people come in and they get their makeup done. So someone can come in the morning and get eyelashes done or something, and some other person can come for skincare treatment, facials, or whatever, the really interesting and wonderful stuff that women do to look pretty, boost their confidence, and also keep their skin healthy. In fact, I think men, perhaps we ought to take a play from that book and start paying attention to skincare as well. My wife has been talking to me about sunscreen, SPF this, SPF that, how I need to use this to open up pores and to declog and or whatnot. But I'm a bit of a caveman when it comes to these sorts of things. So I never listen when she starts talking about those things. I kind of zone out. But if you meet my wife, don't admit to her that I mentioned on the podcast that when she starts talking about SPF and sunscreen, that I actually zone out. Anyway, so that's the store. People come into location, and then the retail arm of the business was when she came up with her own product lines. So if you check Alexia Horsfall Beauty, I think that's the Instagram handle. So if you check that, you're going to see her product ranges. She has got eyeliners, she has got primers, she has got lipsticks, lip gloss, brown pencils, things like that. For those of you men listening to the podcast right now, you have no idea what those things are. Just know that it's beauty stuff that your wife, your girlfriend, your significant other that they use. So for women listening, I'm sure you'll be glad to know that there are other, apart from the foreign beauty products that you feel you've been constrained to use. It would be nice to know that there are Nigerian professionals who are coming up with their own lines that you can use. So, of course, I had some questions about manufacturing because speaking to people involved in other lines of businesses, I assumed that manufacturing would be her biggest headache. But surprisingly, she says that manufacturing is actually the easiest part. All that is outsourced. She's in touch with 3 manufacturers across America and Canada. They create samples, they look at palettes, then they do some testing, there's feedback, you refine the samples that you come up with, and then you create the final order. So she says that manufacturing is the easiest part. And anyway, it's just interesting to see how people across different businesses can have different experiences. Because for people who are involved in drop shipping through Amazon, sometimes they complain that manufacturing is the that manufacturing and quality control is the hard part of the business. So for her, that's the easiest part. So her manufacturing is outsourced, like I said, with manufacturing professionals in the United States and Canada. So don't worry, she's not putting together something in the kitchen over the stove and slapping together ingredients that on her own, that she has no professional training in how things are going to work together. So all this is done really, really, really legit. So as the conversation went on, I wanted to know her experience, between wedding and retail, which part she prefers. Because remember, by the time she was in law school, she had started booking wedding clients. People wanted to do wedding makeup, and she said she prefers the retail side of the business. That's because that's because she has a much more cohesive vision for how retail ties into her future personal aspirations and business aspirations. And then besides, the wedding market, unfortunately, does have some limitations. On the podcast, I'd already started talking about how sometimes it was kind of awkward that I would show up to the wedding and I would be almost 20 years older than the bride. That kind of limits the amount of rapport and the way that we can flow in these sorts of things. There was also that podcast episode where I spoke about how, because I was dealing with a Yoruba couple and because of our age difference, I couldn't get the couple to give it to me straight whenever they had any misgivings or they had any concerns. So I had to have backdoor conversations with the wedding planner, and that was where I was getting my most realistic feedback. So there are some of those limitations. She said it's not going to be possible for her to keep being a makeup artist, into her 60s or into her 70s. So there's that, because like on my own end, I had already started having back and shoulder issues from lugging around all my gear for 12, 14 hours on wedding shoots, because my own gear, my two camera bodies, what else with accessories, everything, I was logging around close to 10, 11 kilograms on my body for 14 hours, sometimes maybe even 16 hours. And then of course you have to wake up really early in the morning, especially when I was in Lagos. You'd have to be on the road 4:30, so you can get there before the makeup artist at 5. And so anyway, so for her, retail is where it's at, because for her personal aspirations and for her business aspirations, also with the opportunity to flex her creative muscle, that's where the future lies for her. So retail allows her to put up systems, to put up structures. It also allows for much more long-term relationships with clients, because in the wedding space, the person comes, they do their wedding, and then they leave. Of course, you might get more business later on when it comes to the naming ceremony where the baby is born, or the the baby shoot, the pregnancy shoot, and then all of that. But you're going to have much more sustained long-term relationship with clients, with more opportunities for repeat businesses if you are in the retail space. Because someone who uses her eyeliner or the primer or the lipstick or the lip gloss and really loves it is not just going to buy one and then disappear for 2 years before coming back. The person is going to have to buy repeatedly. So retail allows for more systems, much more structures along the business, long-term relationships, like I've already said. You're able to maximize the lifetime value of a customer. And I'm sure for those of you who've been listening to this podcast for a very long time, you can already see how some of these themes are beginning to crop up, even though she may not have been doing it on a conscious level like she admits. I've been talking about maximizing lifetime value of customers for a while on the podcast. If this is your first time of listening to the show, then you just use the search function within the podcast app that you're listening to. You can type in CLV, customer lifetime value, referrals, what else? Those sorts of things. And it will expose you to the ideas that we've been discussing about over here on the show. So, so you can see how may not have been conscious, but you can see the personal selling dynamics at play here when it comes to deciding how it is that she's going to grow her business. So, for sales and marketing on the retail arm, it's been mostly organic so far and limited to activities that she does on the Instagram, on the website, and then people coming in through the store. She admits that she's been getting rave reviews from Nigerians in diaspora. Folks who have relocated, America, Canada, those sorts of places. Eventually, they come home. Holidays, stuff like that. People discover her product, they go back home, and then compared to the kind of stuff that they use when they're abroad, the quality it measures up, and that's because Alexia has been really particular when it comes to manufacturing standards, and that is something that some people play loose with in this part of the world. So I guess that's the reason why she's been receiving rave reviews. Because if you come back home for a holiday or something and you buy lipstick or brown powder or eyeliner, you don't expect that it's going to be premium and that it's going to match the quality that you're used to receiving abroad. So she admits that there's a dearth of marketing on her own end, and she hasn't figured it out when it comes to having a very, planned out and deliberate approach to marketing. She has flirted with some marketing agencies here and there. The quotes that she has received, I'm not going to give any prices over here, but even by my standards, I would say the quotes that she has received so far have been rather high on a monthly basis, and sometimes even the marketing agencies have not been able to figure out basic things like who are her ideal target marketers, who the campaigns are supposed to be built around. And that's also another theme that you guys see that I've been playing with over here on the podcast, talking about how we need to know for sure who we are targeting or the sorts of people that we work best with, because that's the bedrock, that's the foundation of any successful sale or marketing effort. And it's something I've complained about on the podcast, that you marketing professionals, you guys need to get your ish together, because you guys love flexing your creativity, and that's good. But if you're not even in agreement on who the client is, what their brand propositioning is, not brand propositioning, their brand positioning, what their brand positioning is, the kind of clients that they like working with, those sorts of things, then all the creative muscle that you put behind all the content you create, the content, the video, the audio, the Instagram post, the whatever it is that you create, it's not likely going to be very effective. And for her ideal customer base, the people that she wants to work with and those that she has enjoyed working with so far, ladies who are 25 and above. And she has also done the smart thing that I've been recommending time and time again on the podcast. She has had a look at her Instagram analytics to see that a lot of the viewership and interaction seems to be coming from Canada, America, and then for Nigeria, it's mostly in the metropolitan cities of Lagos and Abuja. So I've always recommended that you guys need to keep an eye on those sorts of things. Check your Instagram handle, check the emails you've been receiving. Try and get a sense of the folks that have been reaching out, placing orders, interacting. Where are they coming from? This is a very cool way to sort out who your ideal customer base is. Because we can sit in our room, talk to our spouse, talk to your business partners, and then come up with all kinds of highfalutin ideas about how this person is my best client and that person is my best client. But if you're thinking that your ideal customer base, let's say in her own example, for instance, let's say she's being really aspirational and she wants to capture the city of France. It's one thing to sit in your apartment in Lagos and dream about wonderful campaigns about how you're going to capture Western Europe and France. But if you check your analytics and you check your invoices and you check your emails, you'll see that most of the people who are actually doing business with you now and who are interested are Canada, USA, Lagos, Abuja. So it's one thing to aspire. That's good. We can always tweak our messaging and our marketing processes to see how we can reach that ideal fan base or customer base that we're looking towards. But eventually, we have to start from a much more pragmatic. We have to take a much more pragmatic view of these sorts of things. So check your analytics, look at your emails, look at the invoices that you put out. In fact, the invoices, I really, really recommend that one for those of you who have apps that you run your invoices through, because once you look at it, you start getting a very clear picture of who your ideal customer base is. Because if you open up your invoicing app, there's a section that says customers. You'll notice that, okay, under customers, certain kinds of names keep showing up. They seem to be within a certain age range. You can also look at the order amount, things like that. So that's a good thing that we've learned from Alexia, and something that I would recommend for those of you newbies about to get into the game, or those of you who already have fledgling businesses. You've been in the business a year, 2, 3 years. That is something that you also should be paying attention to. So don't guess as to who your ideal customer base is. Check your analytics, check your invoices, look at your engagement history, whether it's people engaging with your stuff or people sending email, things like that. That'll give you a true picture of who it is that you should be doing business with. Now, her cheapest product is, okay, I can't remember. I can't remember if it's an eyeliner or is it a primer or something. Anyway, but the cheapest product is 11,000 naira. So, of course, she is not chasing after people who buy the 1,000 naira eyeliner that we have in the market, because, well, I've seen in Abuja, because there was a time when there was an emergency. My wife needed to get an eyeliner. I was already out and about. I was going to be passing through the office anyway. So I went to the market to go and check for eyeliners. So I saw eyeliners for 500 bucks, for 800, some more than 1,000. So since for her the cheapest that they have is 11,000, then obviously she's not looking at those sort of people that buy stuff in the open market. She's looking for people who have a special a special care or concern around skincare ingredients, things that go into their face, go on their eyelids, go on their, people who are paying attention to those sorts of things. Folks like my wife who say SPF, blah, 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 blah. So Alexa clearly is not thinking about folks like me who have no idea whether you should use sunscreen, why you should use sunscreen, and what SPF means, or whether. Anyway, you get the point. So, women who prioritize personal care and skincare, and then, of course, women who would rather spend money once reliably than people who prefer to make multiple small purchases. The analogy would be maybe shoes or maybe handbags. So, there are those women who don't mind buying one handbag cheap, even though it's going to break down after 2 or 3 months, and then she ends up buying 3 or 4 handbags in a year. So Alexia would rather prefer those women who would invest in that one quality handbag that is going to last maybe 3 or 4 years. So those are the sorts of people that she has as an ideal customer base. And of course, this is only possible because she's paying attention to the analytics, paying attention to the actual engagement, and that gives her a picture of who her her target audience is, or the people that she would love to do business with. Her advice for those people who are getting ready to get into the makeup game, her advice was pretty simple. She said, just start and don't overthink it. And that is something that I've been talking about over here on the podcast, and I'm going to stress again. Too many people are overthinking it. Too many people are thinking it can be A, it could be B, but my father thinks it's C, and my wife thinks I should do E. You're stuck in that limbo, and then before you know it, 3 months go by, you haven't done anything. 6 months, you haven't done anything. 1 year, you haven't done anything. Don't overthink it. Alexa says you should be confident, explore your artistic side until you find your own unique voice, because the market is big enough. And that is where I key in this thing about the market. The market actually is big enough. And that is why I've always been talking about on the podcast that we should pay attention to market validation. Because no matter what it is that we want to do, eventually we find that segment of the market that agrees with you and that says what you have is valuable and we are willing to pay for it. That's the only time that you should give up, is if you can't find a segment of the market that says what you do is valuable and we are willing to pay for it. But so long as you find a segment of the market that is vibing with you and paying, then why not? So, something I don't talk about a lot over here on the podcast, this idea of the abundance of the market. That's because I kind of shy away from motivational stuff, but it actually is something we should pay attention to. There is an abundance in the market. The market is big enough. There are some people that like bronzers and highlights and color palettes of a certain shade, and there's some people that only work with bronzers and toners and lighteners or whatever of another shade. But the thing is, the market is big enough. So right now, you have folks like Alexia manufacturing abroad, USA, Canada, taking a much more scientific approach. Not just scientific, also a creative approach. But then you also have the what's it called? Is it called the cottage beauty industry? That's when people mix things at the back of the house or mix it in the village, things like that. When I was a little kid, my father would buy black soap from Benue State. So that's the sort of thing. When people say, is it cottage beauty industry? Or anyway, you guys get the idea. But the market is big enough for everyone. So the cottage people, they are there. My old man used to patronize the cottage people, and that's where I got my black soap. Every time I would go to school and I'd have irritations on my skin, my father just went home and he would buy it in the village and bring it, and that thing would work. It would knock out all the issues of my skin. And then on the other hand, there's some other women who would, or fathers and mothers, who would only say, well, my son must only use SPF this and, this, that, and nitric acid this and citrus acid that. And the market is big enough. There's room for everyone. So just start. If you're thinking the much more cottage level, that's not a problem. Get in and start. The market validation is going to determine which way that you're going to move things forward. So, my conversation with Alexia, I hope it has been able to prove this, the one of the main theses for which I set up the podcast, and that is that we can't be successful in business unless we are paying attention to the sales and marketing function of the business, and we all have to pay attention to it, whether you're being very deliberate about it or whether it's something that you work out as you are taking one step after another. And you've seen how with someone else in the makeup business, we've seen how themes about business systems, customer lifetime value, figuring out your ideal customer profile, you're beginning to see how these themes that I've been talking about over here on the podcast, more than 700 episodes, you can see how they apply live in other people's businesses. So that's a reason why you should continue listening to this podcast, because we're going to have much more business features in the weeks and the months to come, and why you should also be listening to other business podcasts as well, so that all these so that you can get different points of view on all things sales and marketing related, personal development, business development, those sorts of things. So thank you guys very much for your time and attention. I'm really glad that you are coming along with me as we're moving on to a new chapter over here in the podcast, where we're going to start doing much more business features. So if you like what you've heard so far on the podcast, if you are curious and you want to get some stuff for your wife, or you're a lady who is really particular about skincare and she's worried about what goes onto her face, and you don't like buying stuff from the open market and you want to see what all of this is about, then the places to check are Alexia Horsfall Beauty on Instagram. So that is at Alexia Horsfall Beauty. That's the Instagram handle. And remember, for her Horsfall, there is no E in the horse. I know that for those of you who are Niger Delta people, you're used to seeing an E in Horsfall. Then the website is alexiahorsfall.com. So go have a look. Let her know that you found about her business through the podcast. And if you're looking for reliable skincare solutions for women, there's no male line for now. I forgot to ask if she has any plans for men in the future. But for now, it's all women. So, yeah, you're worried about beauty, you're worried about skincare. Alexia, she's the person to check out. So, Alexia Horsfall Beauty on Instagram and the website alexiahorsfall.com. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I will see you guys at the next episode where I will most likely be handling some listener questions, some audience questions, and then we'll see how we can schedule another business feature for the following week. So thanks for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next episode.